This is the Danger Close podcast, Beyond the Books with me, Jack Carr. Welcome to the Danger Close podcast, an IRONCLAD original presented by Navy Federal Credit Union. Before we get going today, my next novel, the title has dropped. It's called Only the Dead. If you want to see the trailer for that title drop, you can go to my Instagram or to the Jack Carr YouTube channel. And that is hitting shelves in spring of 2023. Available for pre-order now. My guest today, Matt Coyle. He is the author of the Rick Cahill series. This is his latest, Doomed Legacy. Such a great guy. And before we start, I want to read the back from his debut novel, Yesterday's Echo, which came out in 2013. And here it is. While never convicted of his wife's murder, Rick was never exonerated either. Not by the police, not by the media, not even by himself. 8 years later, police suspicion and his own guilt remain over his responsibility in his wife's death. When he meets Melody Milana, a beautiful yet secretive TV reporter, he sees a chance to love again. When she is arrested for murder and asks for Rick's help, the former cop says no, but the rest of him says yes, and he grasps at the chance for love and redemption. Rick's attempt to help turns terribly wrong, and he too becomes a suspect in the murder and the target of a police manhunt. On the run, Rick encounters desperate people who will kill to keep their pasts buried. Before Rick can save himself and bring down a murderer, he must confront the truth about his own past and untangle his feelings for a woman he can never fully trust. Man, that is awesome. And now, without further ado, Matt Coyle. Hey, there he is.
Hey, Jack.
What's happening? How are you?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Nice. Look at this right here. Look at the background there. Nice. There you go. Seeing those books. A lot of those people back there have given you blurbs. Hey, nice. There it is. I love it. Love it.
Marketing genius.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Doing great. I'm glad we got to work this in.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing it. Hey, I don't know if you, we're not,
we can.
This isn't going to be.
Yeah, we can. I always just start right off, but yeah, we can hold off.
I want to know if you looked at the spine of the book I sent you, Doomed Legacy. Don't say anything. You look at the spine.
Last Redemption.
No, the one you just picked up.
Yeah. Hold on.
Yeah, you got the right one.
Yeah, sorry. The spine.
No, the spine is wrong.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Now, that's because you said Doomed Legacy, and I just looked at this. I'm like, I swear I just looked at the cover.
It's being fixed. It's being fixed.
No way. That's crazy. It's a collector's item then.
Yeah.
That totally messed me up because I was like, I swear I just looked at Doomed Legacy and put it here. And then I looked at it from this angle and was like, oh, no. Look at that. I've got the wrong.
It totally messed me up, too, when I realized it.
No. How long did it take you to realize it?
Longer than you would think. I got the books, I don't know, about 4 or 5 days ago. And I was looking at them. I love the cover. It looks great. And then I set it down on a table next to me, and I was watching some sports or something. And I kind of glanced over, and it was dark when I was watching TV. And I looked over, and I saw the spine. I go, oh, I put a copy of Last Redemption over there. And then I went, oh, shit, wait a second.
That's what I just did.
I realized. And I don't know. But it's new dust covers are being made as we speak.
No way. So if they've already shipped, how does that work?
I'm not sure. I think mine came directly from the printer. I mean, I get mine pretty early, so it's not out till the 15th of November. So I brought this up. So we got time.
No way. That is wild.
A lot of us missed it. A lot of people saw that and missed it.
Yeah, I've had it for a few days and I didn't notice it even when I put it up here.
I'm talking about like the PDF.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so easy. People don't realize how easy it is to miss things like that. And you'd think that would be huge, but your focus is elsewhere.
My books generally aren't space out.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't, that's one of those ones that subconsciously you just expect to be right. Like just look like, oh, okay. And then you boom, and it's kind of the colors right and all that stuff. And it just, your brain tells you that the spine is going to be the exact same as the cover.
Exactly.
And so it's one of those weird things.
The spine of the arc is correct. So that makes it doubly strange.
Interesting. Yeah, that is wild.
Anyway.
There's those are hard to catch. I mean, just like regular edits, you know, you're going through and you've read something so many times and there's that "an" that should be an A, but your mind has put the A in there so many times. And then someone catches it. And it's a third pass, fourth pass, whatever it might be. And then you fix it. But it's one of those ones that you've seen so many times and is so easy. And you're like, well, your brain just puts in there what it thinks should be. I find that happens quite frequently.
For me, it's form and from.
There you go. And also the autocorrect doesn't help because now we become so dependent upon that when it's an actual word that doesn't need to be where maybe it's getting a little better. I've noticed it's, you know, it'll put that little blue squiggly line under sometimes if there's a grammatical error. So sometimes that A and that "and" will catch, but other times it won't for whatever reason, I guess, depending on what version of Word you may be working in. But yeah, I noticed that happens fairly frequently with words that just like that. Yeah. It's wild. Yeah. It's wild. Man, but this is a crazy one. And I just saw this for the first time on another book, but it was a international edition of the latest Kyle Mills, Vince Flynn. And I think it was somebody in Australia, I think, picked one up and it had the wrong spine on it as well. Yeah, but it was an international.
All the way to retail. I feel better then.
Yeah, I think it went all the way to retail, but an international version. But that makes it worth more. You know?
Yeah, well, yeah, that'll put it up a nickel above regular retail.
That's right. So this is number 9.
Right.
Dang, that's amazing. And right here, yesterday's Echo. So this one, 2013.
Right.
For this one, man, that is.
I was 10 years in the making.
I read that and I don't think I knew that. And we've known each other for a few years now. And I don't think I knew that until I just read it right before I ran in here that you worked on this for 10 years. But you didn't just decide one day that you wanted to get up and write this book. You wanted to be a writer from a pretty early age.
Right. I knew, I'd say when I get the years wrong, but 13 or 14 or maybe even 12. I remember reading Agatha Christie and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. You know, I think when you're that age, you really love the puzzle piece aspect of that. It's like you got, plus it's black and white, good and bad.
Yeah.
And so putting the puzzles together, putting everybody in the room, of course, and that is really cool. And then my dad, like I said, I'm maybe 13-ish. My dad gave me The Simple Art of Murder by Raymond Chandler. Of course, his essay on writing crime mysteries, and he kind of took a shot at Agatha Christie, actually. But anyway, and then it's all these short stories to go with it, and I started reading. I go, wait, where's the black and the white? And there's some gray in here. And of course, at that age, you know, a young teen, you're learning about gray as it is. So it really appealed to me. Of course, Chandler's, to me, the best crime writer ever, perhaps. And I started reading Ross McDonald, and I started reading Dashiell Hammett. And, that's how old I am. I mean, they were dead, but still, they weren't dead that long when I started reading. Right. In fact, Chandler died the year I was born, I think, actually, or maybe a year after. So, yeah, I knew then I was that age. I go, man, I want to do this. I was pretty good at English in school. And what I didn't understand about the whole writing thing, and I think you picked this up earlier than I did, is that to become a writer, you actually have to write. So I didn't start doing that seriously. I mean, I went to college, I got a degree in English, which is good for waiting tables, which is what I did when I got out of college. But I always knew I wanted to do it. I made the mistake of telling people, I'm gonna be a writer. In the meantime, I'm kind of going from job to job, industry to industry. I was in the golf business for many years, sports licensing business, restaurant business initially, straight out of college. But I would, at times when I was the mood hit me, I'd write, but of course it's work, so that was, when you're inspired, it's good for me. I'm a slow writer, maybe 3 pages and the rest of the grind. And I didn't get past those 3 pages for 20 years. I mean, every once in a while I'd put together a weekend, but I just didn't fall through. And then I'd worked for, I'm going on and on, but it'll fill space. I'd worked for 4 golf companies that I say I helped put out of business, or they changed their entity in 10 years. They either did go out of business or they were bought by somebody else. I worked for Odyssey Golf and Callaway bought us.
You weren't writing their copy, were you?
Pardon me?
You weren't writing their copy, were you?
Oh God, no. I wasn't even dedicated enough to do that.
Okay.
But anyway, I saw the handwriting on the wall, this last company I worked for, and I said, we're going down. And I had a little money saved up. And I said, well, when it does, I'm going to write a book, or I can't pretend like it's something I'm going to do ever again.
Mm.
I was 43, I think.
Okay.
And I said, you basically haven't made a career. Your family members are pretty successful in what they've done. You've gone from job to job, and then you had this thing that I'm going to be a writer. I never really did anything about it. So I drew the line in the sand. I said, you got to write, or you can't pretend this is being something you're going to do. And in 5 months, I'd written what I thought was a book, because I had the beginning said chapter 1, and the last page I wrote the end at the bottom. So I figured I had a book. It's roughly 300 pages.
Uh-huh.
And so I got that done in 5 months, and I was very lucky that the guy I used to work with in the golf business said, "Hey, I'm working for the sports licensing company. Do you want to come over and do sales for us?" And I said, "Well, I honestly got a week after I quit. I finished the book."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, Eric, I'd like to help you out, but it only be for a while, because I've written this book, and pretty soon I will sell it. I'll buy the house in La Jolla, and I'll never have a day job again." And I haven't bought the house in La Jolla yet, but I was pretty prescient, because I worked for him for 16 years. So, and then I finally quit 4 years ago. But it's from that point, it took me 10 years to get published. Because it's the book was a first draft, and probably, I don't know, 7 drafts or so. And I've always said that I'm fortunate that I was never published or got an agent at an earlier part, because if somehow I did get published with this, a lower quality book, whatever level I'm at now, I wouldn't be there, because I would have, I may not even still be being published, because the quality, I wouldn't have gotten some minimal acclaim, which I did for my first book.
You got a lot of acclaim for it. There's like every award you can possibly get in the mystery genre. There's like, yes, there's a lot. Don't be humble.
There's not, but it does help. It does help get you some notoriety, and that certainly helps kind of build a career, be more accepted. So of course, now I look back, I've been writing this character for 20 years. But I look back, it took me 10 years, not 10 years of sending out, probably close to 6 years of sending querying before I was picked up even by an agent. But it's easy to say now that thank God that it went the way it did, because if I had been picked up earlier, I think my career would be different.
So you were refining it along the way, and was Yesterday's Echo was this the one that you did the 5 pages on like 30 years ago, when you were still waiting tables or whatever you were doing in the restaurant?
Yeah, actually, yes.
That was the foundation. The idea is the same.
Right. Well, it changed quite a bit, and title changed, thank God. But about the process of a revision and everything, and yes, it was the same book. And I got to the point, actually, finally, where, because there are people that are trying to just continue to refine that first book, and then it never gets published, and sometimes the book is not going to be accepted by the market.
Yeah.
And I was very close to that point. I actually started the second book, what became the second book. And I said, I've learned my lesson. I've gone for as long as I can. I needed to write this story to get my idea of Rick anyway, so it's all good.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna. But I have to move on. And soon thereafter, I got a rejection from, I'll call a very nice lady, but I'll call a C agent. You got your A, B, C's, and then you don't really want to go below that. And she wrote a very, very nice rejection letter telling me where it was short. And so there's a woman that I've worked with for years. I haven't a few, but she's a wonderful woman. Carolyn Wheats. She was a mystery writer, and she teaches now online. And she had the misfortune of probably seeing every draft of my first six or seven books. So she knew my work, and I said, "Do you read the email? Is there something here? Should I address her issues?" And she said, "Well, send me $500 in the manuscript, and I'll tell you." And I did, and she gave me 12-page single-space notes in a few months, and I revised again, and then I ended up getting an agent. And then that book that there's a story there. There's an agent in LA who was very nice, who rejected me and said, "Hey, I think you can write, but the subject matter of this book yesterday, I go, it's not right for me." I go, "Great." She goes, "And don't get discouraged because what do I think? I always blank on his name. It's embarrassing. The husband and wife writers, now their son writes. Anyway, people will know who it is. But he said, don't get discouraged because he didn't get published till his 7th book. And I was 50 at the time. I said, well, I'm not going to live forever. So, but yeah, so I ended up it probably was my 7th book too, but it was the same book. I was just revising. Thank God.
Yeah. So when you're 13, 14 and you read the books that you were reading then, and there's the draw towards mystery and crime, did you ever pick up any of the thrillers of that time frame? So you're reading,
well, sure.
I mean, that's pre-Tom Clancy days, I'm guessing. So you're still, we still with Higgins back then, Jean le Carré, of course, earlier the Bond books, Ludlum's in there. You have all these amazing authors back there, Alistair MacLean.
Absolutely.
Did you read those as well? But you're just drawn more towards crime and mystery?
I was drawn more towards crime and hard-boiled crime specifically. I like first-person narration, but I read everything. I read Ludlum. I read every book that he wrote. And when I was a young age, I remember reading. What was the one they made a movie with?
With who? Sorry, cut out for a sec.
They made a movie with Frank Sinatra out of the book.
Oh.
He was a detective. It was a guy with the axe, the ice axe murderer. Ooh. What the hell is it called?
Anyway, I don't know, but I'm going to watch it tonight. I don't think I've seen that one. Yeah, was it an actual movie or like a made for TV?
Yeah, it was a movie. Frank Sinatra, but it's a Ludlum book. The First Something, I think it was.
And I'm going to look it up.
And it's really, I'm on a vacation with my family up in Lake Tahoe, and I'm sitting there reading this book, and there's a scene. I go, what? I am not old enough to read this.
Nice.
But
I read a few of those when I was a kid too. So thinking like, oh, geez, I don't think my parents know what's in this thing.
Right. They did not. It's all research. It's all research for later in life.
Yeah, no, it really was. All those books that I read growing up at those early ages, that helped form that foundation I continue to build upon today. And I feel so fortunate that I got to read those at such an early age and got to read them through the lens of a kid, just wide-eyed, experiencing that magic without the kind of some of those other the cynicism maybe that builds up over the years, experience, whatever it might be. I guess in an age of innocence, I guess. And there was, because there was such magic and power in those pages that really inspired me along the path that I'm on today. So I feel very fortunate that I discovered those books at such an early age, even probably especially the inappropriate parts.
Right. I follow you on social media, and you are the best read person that I know. And plus, not just that, but all the historic things you post on Instagram, for instance, is I'm always like, I know this guy's pretty busy. Like, how does he get I guess it's the knowledge you've accumulated over the years, but it's pretty impressive and a little depressing for the rest of us.
Well, and a lot of it is those early years. I mean, I do reach back to those formative years, especially on the memory parts. When I post something about the 1979 Iranian hostage crisis, or 1980 Desert One, or 83 Beirut barracks bombing, or anything like that, TWA 47, anything like that, I remember where I was when I saw those things happening on the news, or the newspaper arrived, or the Time or the Newsweek got to our house. I distinctly remember those images, and then reading those articles, watching the news. And they obviously made an impression. And then for some of those things, it was a couple of years later. So obviously 1979 Iranian hostage crisis, I wasn't reading the things that I'd be reading 6 years down the line. Like 1985, for sure, I'm reading the things that my parents are reading. And a lot of those had, if not references, touch points with terrorism. And our military type with the units, that sort of a thing, special operations in particular, counterinsurgencies. Guys had backgrounds in Vietnam that they flash back to or think back to solve a current problem, that sort of a thing. So it was all very, and I wonder today if I had social media back then, like how much I would be attached to that screen, looking up things that I'd look at for 5 seconds, 15 seconds, rather than reading that entire article, because there wasn't another option. You couldn't get that information any other way than by sitting down and watching the 5 to 10 minute news segment on something, or reading that 15-minute article in Time magazine, or the 10-minute newspaper article, whatever it might have been. But you had to put in the work. It wasn't coming to you. There weren't as many other distractions. So I often wonder when I see the kids are in constant competition with the devices, like a lot of parents are these days. So I wonder if I'd had those inputs and could look up things, special operations, could follow people online, what kind of inputs I would have been getting. And I do think about that today too, how important it is, not just for kids, for young adults, who they follow. Because if you're going to because you can follow someone, not just the negative, positive part of it, but how much work you have to put in effort to actually read the post of 2,200 characters max, which is actually a good writing exercise as well. I found that a lot of those things where I have so much I want to explore and talk about, you have 2,200 characters to include spaces that you can use. And so it's actually a good exercise in kind of minimizing, words and that sort of thing, getting to the point, that sort of a thing that I don't have when I'm in front of my computer and can just write as much as I want and expound from different characters' points of view, which I absolutely love. But the social media stuff is very, very interesting because it wasn't all out there when you started. 2013, I guess. I don't know when Instagram came along, but Facebook was there. And
I wasn't though. I wasn't on it. I mean, I'm a late adapter to all that actually. Although I'm way too invested now, but I didn't. I was looking stuff up, online, but hell, my first drafts of yesterday's Echo were written on a used IBM ThinkPad with a floppy disk.
No.
And my first rejection letter went to my work email because I didn't have a personal email.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I kind of ruined the day, but it's all for the good though. Every rejection is just a step closer. So.
Oh my goodness. Well, in reading these things, emotion, I've heard you talk about emotion and having your character really have to become invested in something emotionally, not just have a mystery and solve that mystery along the way, but become emotionally attached to it. And do you find yourself getting emotionally attached to these mysteries, these crimes, these situations? And do you consciously think, hey, if my character is emotionally invested, then a reader will be too?
Absolutely. Some books more so than others, but always emotionally invested. I actually heard you, and I actually sent you a Instagram message on it, and now I'm blanking on, because something that I've mentioned many times in talks, you actually encapsulated it so well, in that, unlike you, my life's been very, hasn't had a whole lot of action, and I played sports and stuff, and when you get to a certain age, you had a lot of loss in your life, or you've had a fair amount of loss in your life, and that's very real. But I think you were talking about taking, and it was the terminal list. You might have been talking to Chris Pratt, can't remember, but it was you were taking experiences from the battlefield and you were putting them on the streets of, I think it was LA or San Francisco, I can't remember which. And you said, I took the emotion of that real experience and put it in a different area, but also slightly different. And I think that's what I always try to do. Like I said, I haven't been a soldier, I haven't been a cop, I haven't been a doctor, I haven't been a lawyer, I haven't been all these different things. But when you get to a certain age, you have experienced a lot of the different emotions and a lot of loss, or a fair amount of loss. In my family, a fair amount of loss. And so I always try to pull from that and put that into, like Rick's had people die in front of him. They might be a friend or something. Of course, that's never happened to me, but I've had people in my family die, and tragically. And so you take that real emotion and you pour it in, and that definitely hopefully connects with the reader. My guy is not the smartest guy in the world, Rick Cahill. But he's very bulldogish, and he does get emotionally attached. And there's a reason, because before the first book, even his wife was murdered, and he feels somewhat responsible for it. And he's always trying to redeem himself. Every case that I write about, there's something in it for him to try to find that redemption. And it doesn't always start that way. It seems can be very innocuous. In fact, in this book, it seems very innocuous initially. and then something happens and he does get emotionally attached, and when he gets emotionally attached, he feels responsible. And so then there's no turning back. And there have been the fourth book I wrote, Blood Truth. My father had just passed away, I don't know, probably a couple of months before I wrote it. He was 90, almost 91, but he died under, the guy, I hope I have his genes, because his brain was like a clock, and he died, unfortunately, after a fall. And it was, just one of those weird things that happen. But so he was old, but it was still a surprise.
Right.
And the book Blood Truth, that I wrote, was going to be a father-son book all along. It's one of the few times that I know what the next book's going to be about, that I kind of have a deeper feeling what the next book's going to be about. And so when I'm writing that book, it's not only, it's a father-son book for Rick, and it's somewhat for me. I mean, Rick has to find the truth about what really happened in his father's life. And so he's digging, very emotional for him. And it was really the most emotional book for me. So yeah, I do get emotionally invested. And I get emotionally invested to Rick. I've been writing the guy for 20 years, in Rick rather. I've been in his head, first person, for 20 years. So there is a connection. I know he's not real, but I do think of it. I do think of his life sometimes. Sometimes some of the things he goes through make me a little sad.
Yeah. As I'm writing, I find that if I'm getting emotional in writing, or then reading back, more importantly, reading back what I've written, and I'm getting emotional, then it's a good sign that at least part of the readership will be feeling those emotions as well. But that's exactly what I do. I grab these different emotions behind certain things that happen downrange, and then apply them to a totally fictional narrative. So I find myself doing that with every book. Do you find it therapeutic to explore some of those feelings through the medium of popular fiction, or through a mystery, rather than sitting down and just thinking about it yourself?
In some ways, yeah. In some ways, or at least in some ways, it kind of opens up feelings maybe that I have shied away from, and kind of at a point in my life right now where I'm starting to explore those things. And so, yeah, I think it's a good thing. I think and I've heard Michael Connelly say that he writes about things that scare him, and I think maybe we all do in some ways. But we write about things, and for me, it's subconscious. I mean, I try not to think a whole lot when I'm writing. But my subconscious is always working on the book I'm writing. But I think that we're always looking at things that do trouble us in life. I mean, that's what I think that's what's going on with Rick's, all his ups and downs, mostly downs, is that I'm through a different lens, looking at my own mistakes in life and trying to figure out why.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a powerful tool personally and professionally. Writing those things, I've found can be very therapeutic, and then also professionally, really help connect with readers, because you're humanizing these different characters, whether it's the protagonist or other ones in there, and they're feeling certain things that then that reader can feel as well through that experience of picking up the book and spending a few hours in a chair with your characters, with your story. So I find it very powerful. Found it powerful as a kid when I started reading, and all throughout my life as well. So, and you mentioned Michael Connelly. Do you like comparisons, or do you not? I know some authors they don't like being compared to others. I like when someone compares me to my stuff to Vince Flynn. I'm like, wow, Roger, that is amazing. Thank you so much. But I've heard other authors say that they don't like being compared to others. And you do get the Michael Connelly comparison. You have a private investigator in San Diego. Obviously, he has. In his first book, was it 93 that Black Echo came out? Somewhere around there anyway.
Probably, yeah.
1993, somewhere in there. But do you like those comparisons, or that's pretty good.
That's
pretty.
No. Of course.
That's pretty cool to get compared to Michael Connelly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Michael Connelly happens to be a very nice guy. He's helped a lot of writers in different ways. But absolutely, yeah. These are people that I read. I read the genre. I know a lot of writers that when they're writing, they can't read the genre, but I can. I think I think it's osmosis. You're collecting stuff all through your life, and I have been compared to Chandler before. And,
there's one on one on the cover. Here we go.
Oh, that was Ross McDonald.
Yeah.
That was Lee Goldberg.
Robert Parker and Ross McDonald,
which is very, very nice of him. Yeah, but so it's a. I mean, I learned from Parker, McDonald, and they put a big D on McDonald. We're changing that too, by it's supposed to be a small D. And Connell and Raymond Chandler. But I think just, all the reading I've done in the genre, all this stuff has come to me through osmosis. So, and because it took me so long to get published, I developed the thing that you hear about writing, and it's nebulous, it's hard to describe, is voice. Mm-hmm. And I think all those years of having to revise, I finally developed my own voice. And so I'm not worried about when I'm reading if I'm copying somebody. I can't tell you how many Connolly books that I've dog-eared because just something about police investigations. My guy's a private investigator, but he was a cop, and he bumps up against cops. So it's good for me to know the way police investigations are done. And Connolly's just got, he's an encyclopedia about it. And so I will dog-ear stuff in his books and go back and read it like, oh, yeah, this is important to know. But in terms of, I'm not worried about copying anybody's or trying to steal anybody's voice. But we learn so much from other writers and to be compared to anybody is, incredible.
Yeah, we find out what you like and you dislike, especially if you didn't just wake up one day and decide to be a writer. If you were reading your whole life like you are, I mean, during that time, you're developing your tastes. Your likes and your dislikes, and you're making these, whether it's conscious or not, that didn't work, or I really like this. I wish that author had explored that a little more, gone down that path a little further, or whatever it might be. So all those things that we're just kind of bookmarking away in the back of our head and building this life experience as readers, that now as writers that we can go and it's there. Hey, now there's that thing that I wish back in 1987 that so-and-so had gone down this other path and didn't. It's in there somewhere, and now you're doing it, whether you know it or not. So, But if you hadn't done that reading at those ages, they wouldn't be there. So it's really interesting. I think I try to get the kids to read. Once again, it's tough. I read to those kids in the crib as soon as they were home up until they got old enough where, they're like, no more reading anymore together. But it's tough to compete with all the electronic devices out there. But my hope is that a lot of the kids today, mine in particular, find reading, I think, through audiobooks. It seems like that's like kind of the gateway, because they're on these things all the time, podcasts becoming more popular, all these sorts of things, that it's a natural transition into books through that, through the audio part of it. So I think I'm hoping that's the case anyway, because I had this foundation built up, and I'm just worried that a lot of kids today don't have that.
Yeah, I worry about it too, and but I always thought that J.K. Rowling was a godsend for the literary community.
Yeah, my kids have all read those.
It's got kids reading rather, got kids actually buying books.
Oh yeah,
or their parents buying them. But I worry about it too. And not just that, just the long form of reading a novel is that it's funny. I went to the Padre game. I'm here in San Diego. Padres clinched the playoffs yesterday by losing, but they're in. But I went to the game Saturday night, and I took a friend of mine, and she hadn't been to a game in a while. And the stadium, they've got so much stuff going on the whole time. They're attacking you with noise in between each pitch. And then all these, they got all these different boards, visual boards, not just the scoreboard, where there's just stuff blinking at you. And that's what we have, all these devices have major, it's all about short-term now as opposed to long-term. So I do really worry about, of course, my readers are all older than me. So and we're all living longer, thank God. I will be cognitively impaired by the time my readers die. So I'm okay. But I do worry about the long form, but existing. But I think we're okay. I want to ask you a question. You mentioned audio. Did you find it interesting when you first heard? Of course, you got Ray Porter's unbelievable, who does your audio. But when you heard audio for the first time, how many different characters you have, and how a very good narrator can differentiate them?
It's incredible. And I just this last year read the new forward to Terminalist. So I wrote a new forward for the hardcover edition that the media tie-in for the Terminalist Amazon series. So I wrote kind of the story of how this came about. And I thought, hey, why don't I just read this part instead of having Ray read that forward, because it's new. It's another thing to talk about, to get it out there. And so I decided to read it. So I went to a closet here, put the microphone in there, hung all these shirts and like a bunch of flannels everywhere for noise absorption and all that, and had a director on the headset and was doing it. It is difficult. And I'm just reading my own voice, trying to get through just a forward. And I messed up multiple times. And there's certain things, I find this happens quite frequently in my mind when I look up a name, particularly if they're, let's say, from Iran or wherever else, and I visually see it, and okay, that's the name, and I put it in there, and I never pronounce it because I'm just typing away in a quiet room, and I never say it. And so some of the first times I have to say some of those names are in interviews when people ask me about certain characters, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I've never said this out loud before, and I don't know how to pronounce it. But Ray has to do that. And now I write with audio in mind, meaning I don't want to get a paragraph and a half in before I mention that this person is, from Yugoslavia and has this, that sort of a thing. Like right off the bat, I gotta set him up for success so he doesn't then have to waste time and go back and be like, oh, geez, I just read, even if it's just 2 sentences or 1 sentence, and he doesn't have the accent yet because I didn't mention it yet. Well, then I try to get that stuff in the beginning. So I do think about audio when as I'm writing these days. But it's I couldn't possibly do it. It's incredible that he can differentiate all these different characters. I mean, he's theatrically trained Shakespearean actor, and obviously this incredible background, and he loves it, and he's so good at it. But there's no way I could keep all that straight. It's hard enough when I have a list of characters over here, taped to the side of my computer that has their position and where they're from and a little bit of background on them, that sort of a thing. It's hard enough to keep everybody straight in some of these.
You have, for English speakers, you have a lot of difficult names in your books too.
I do. There's some, even the English ones, I never say out loud. So that part, I'm like, oh, geez, how do I say that? Especially when I hear somebody else say it for the first time, and it's not the way I've been thinking of it for the last year and a half in my head, because I've just visually seen it. And they say it a different way. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, guess we're going with that. So it's really interesting, the audio side.
I've actually done I've moderated some panels where this is what's so embarrassing. People that I know but they have interesting last names that I've never really said their last name. I don't think I've ever heard anybody. I read their last name many times. So what I will do is go and find like some podcast or something, just dig down, and then I'll find exactly how it's pronounced. I've had to do that a couple times.
Oh, I have quite frequently. Yes, that happens quite frequently on the podcast. Actually, I'm like, oh, how do I say their last name? I've only called them by their first name, and I've seen their last name, and maybe I've heard it said a few times, but I didn't pay attention exactly to how you correctly say it. And then if you do hear it from someone else, you have to trust that person got it right, and that the author, whoever it is being interviewed, didn't just not correct them because it was close enough. You're like Mark Greaney.
I try to get multiple sources.
Mark Greaney. It's Greaney, and I knew that early on. But everybody says Greaney because it looks like that, and he rarely corrects them. But I knew that early on, so I get it right. But most people get that one wrong, and he doesn't correct them. So every time we go to a podcast to be like, how do you say this person's last name? And you look. You have to be like, okay, would this person correct that person? Maybe let's get a second opinion, look at a couple others just to make sure. But that's just how it is. But the audio, audio is the fastest growing segment of publishing, and I think it's fascinating. It's fascinating because for a ton of different reasons. But forefront of those of all that is just how hard it is, just how and how amazing these guys that are at the top of their game, how they do it, and how many they can do a year. I don't know if, like I just said, I had a hard enough time just reading that forward. And like Ray, he has these books stacked up to do throughout the year. And he's not just working on my book and then another one, like 2 others. No, he's got all these different characters, a lot of them, and he goes multiple genres, and he does nonfiction and fiction. But he's got to keep all that straight. And some of these like thrillers have Russian bad guys. You have, So there are, it's got to be a lot harder than it's harder than I'm even imagining it by reading that forward and appreciating it as much as I do. It's even harder than I could possibly even realize with even being as deep into it as I am.
All right. Yeah, but it's great to hear. It's all great to read your own stuff out loud so you can find out what you're, because audio or vocal reads differently than you do with your eyes. And you'll pick when you read it out loud, you'll say, I just said he 4 times in 8 words. Yeah. And so it is beneficial to read your stuff out loud, but it gets harder and harder the less time you have.
Yeah, I've just recently started doing that. I didn't do it at all for the first few books, and I'd say probably the last 2. I haven't read the whole thing out loud, but I get to a certain paragraph that I just want to confirm, and repetition. Even word repetition when you're aware of it, it's so hard. There's just things that we say as humans naturally, and that end up in the book more than I'd like. Right. But talking out loud, reading these things out loud. So I won't read the whole thing, but I will read paragraphs here and there. And they're not necessarily paragraphs that I'm having a hard time with, but they're just ones that I just want to make sure I have down right. There's some intricacies in there that I want to make sure that I get, and that's why I will read those ones out loud. I've heard some authors read from back to front. Have you heard that before? People start when they're editing, and they'll start here. They'll start with they'll start with epilogue, and then they'll go here, chapter 52, and they'll read that. And I can see how that would be beneficial because of those things that we talked about earlier. I've read this paragraph so many times that even though it's not, there's this word in here that should be a the, I'm putting the in there just because I know that's what should be there. And there's this trick being played. But when you go backwards, I've heard people say that they find a lot more of those. When they read it from the back. So I haven't done that yet because of time. But if I did have time, I probably would do that if I didn't have a bunch of other things going on. I think that would be beneficial. At least try. Maybe I should try it on this next book, on the 6th one that I'm working on now. Maybe I'll try that.
I found that I should read the spine of the book first.
That is a good advice right there for all authors to check that as soon as you open the box.
My publisher is going to drop me.
Oh man, that's still just crazy. And I've heard you talk about dropping anchors before. So these ideas you have as you're writing, and you just you put them in there kind of is that just to save them, even though you know that, hey, it's probably not right for this paragraph or this sentence, whatever it might be, this part of the dialogue, but it's a great line. And you just want to get it down, because I keep a separate Word document going for those. Right. But instead of just throwing them in, knowing they're not going to work, I just throw them in another document for future books. But is that kind of what you're doing, just getting it out there so you don't forget?
Well, what happens with me, and I've got a very, we call it, as we get older, and we've done more of them, organic writing style, but it's very messy.
I've heard you say that your writing style is messy.
Yeah. I tried to do a skeletal. I used to do kind of a skeletal outline, plot point, exciting incident, plot points. And at the ending, I still pretty much know where I want to go, because you got to have a target.
I think that's important.
Yeah. But the more I write, the messier it gets. And I've just learned to trust it, because I've done it before. So as I mentioned, my subconscious is very, very big in my writing. I mentioned Carolyn Wheat, and she used to lead a writers group I was in for many years. And she said, Matt, your subconscious is a much better writer than you are. She's absolutely right. So and it wasn't a dig, or maybe it was with her, you never know. So when I'm writing a scene, because I each day I'm sort of doing the blank page thing, which Raymond Chandler, paraphrasing, every day had to get up and look at a blank page as typewriter. And I have an idea where I'm going the next day, but a lot of times it is just seat of the pants, blank paging. And sometimes I'll be writing a scene and something will pop up. It may not necessarily fit, but there's an idea, and I just drop it in. I drop the anchor and I leave it in there, and it may be 5 minutes later I understand what it meant, and I put it in the story. I build around it more, and sometimes I don't know what it means, but I leave it in there, and they come to me a week or so later. And there are times where I get to the end of the book and I've got to go pull up some anchors, or the end of a draft at least. Because it didn't go anywhere. But I've learned for my first draft, maybe even second draft, or even revisions I'm doing now, is that if my subconscious is telling me this belongs here, I put it in there. And I would say, maybe after the last book where I pulled more than I expected, I would say 75% of the time, whatever I'm putting in there enhances the story, gives me a better idea of what I'm really trying to do. But I may not know it right away. This is the whole blank page or seat of the pants problem, is that you sometimes don't know where you're going. You have to, for me, I have to write a very long first draft, and I will go with that. I will follow this thing where it goes. And sometimes I know I spent a whole day writing something that I'm going to pull up, but it helps me because I don't outline. It helps me get from where I need to go later in the story. I know that it's filling in the space for me, but it gives me a better idea of what's going on. And it's a messy way. It's not an efficient way to write, but it's the way my brain works. And the more I fight it, the less I write. So I remember before, I can't remember what book it was, but I said, you know what? I'm going to get organized this time. I'm going to do this. I wasted 6 weeks of not getting anything done. I have to say, this is a problem for Rick. Dive in. What I always do for Rick Cahill is I find what's going on in his personal life. What's the major subplot with him? And that's the thing that I I gravitate to. And then I find a storyline that will make his life more difficult. Sometimes they've intertwined, but not always. But whatever he's dealing with internally, the job he takes, the case he takes, because he's a private investigator, is going to make that part of his life much more difficult. And so I don't start with the main story. I mean, I kind of have an idea where I want to go, but I start what's going on with Rick's life. And there's always something very difficult going on in his life.
Interesting. Where did you get the CTE part? Where did that come into play? Why did you decide to explore that?
It's a good question. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy. For those, I mean, any sports fans knows what it is. It's the pro football disease, a head trauma. I had two rules when I first started writing. I didn't know anything. I read the genre forever, as we talked about. I didn't know how to write, even though I'm an English major. But I had two rules. And one of them was Rick's not going to have a sidekick. I changed that. It changed the book. It changed the books for me. But it took me a book to find out I wanted to do that.
Interesting.
The other was everything. That Connolly has nobody counts. Everyone counts or nobody counts. Yeah. Not stealing for him, but I think of everything, every bad decision, every action Rick has taken, there's repercussions. And when I started writing Rick Cahill 20 years ago, of course, we didn't know what CTE was, but there was no way I was going to give him some sort of disease that could shorten his life and give him dementia. My publisher's not that happy about it, but what I said, I want to make this as real as possible. Rick's been shot he's been shot a few times. Every time, there's been a couple of times where I had him take off his shirt and somebody's, not in a sexual context, but somebody sees him like, oh my God, like all the scars. I have to go back and remember where they all are, but he's had all this physical trauma. And the rule was everything has to matter. And that includes, like, if he gets his ribs bruised early in the book, a week later, they still hurt. And so I've got to be conscious of that. And then when I started to think about, okay, Rick, he boxed Golden Gloves as a kid. He played football, Pop Warner up through high school. I think his sophomore year in college, played major college football at UCLA for 2 years. He's been concussed in the books. And I thought, well, shit, if I'm going to adhere to this, he's probably got CTE. I mean, he probably has it. Mm-hmm. Every football player they ever cut open and looked for it has had it. It doesn't even matter what position. So he's had all these different brain traumas in his life. He's probably got it. And so I said, well, shit, if I'm going to be true to this guy, he's got CTE. And then like, okay, now what do you do? And that's where I am now. This is the second book, Doom Legacy, where he's had it. It's gotten worse. He's getting these flash angers with his family that he tries to dissipate by going in his garage where he's got a heavy bag. But sometimes he can't. And that's how the book opens, where he's gotten where he's blown up and he left the house, and his wife takes this baby girl who he never thought he'd be a father. His first wife was murdered, and he's had ups and downs relationships, and he's finally in a good place, going to be the father. He's 43 or 2 or 3, first child, but then he's gone this kind of life-shortening journey, and now he can't even control that. He can't control these rages, and they're affecting his life. So yeah, it's I'm writing book 10 right now, and you still got it. It doesn't go away. So, but to be true to my whole thing, I could not see how he did not have it, and it had to affect him.
Right. And all these books are San Diego. So people who have spent any time in San Diego, they're super fun to read because you'll recognize all these different places and streets and these locales. You even have some seal action in this one. Dark Fissures the one with the seal action?
Yes, I wish I would have known you at the time. Yes.
But I love the San Diego. I love having that as a character, essentially a setting in these. Do you ever think about breaking away from this character, from that setting, and going elsewhere, exploring other places in the country or whole other storylines with different characters?
Yes. The other parts of the country, maybe other parts of Southern California, which for reason the 10th book I'm writing is probably going to be the last Rick Cahill book for a while. I love the guy. I've written him for 20 years. I've written first person in one character's head for 20 years. So The challenge for me will be to do something different.
Yeah. To
write third person, which I haven't done since college, which was a long time ago. So yes, I do want. I think it would be a nice, just kind of to give my brain a different way to go.
Yeah.
I had an idea for that I really sunk my teeth into, and for unusual personal reasons, I'm decided I can't do it. Hard to explain, but I won't. So there's a few things percolating in my head, but yeah, I'm finishing book 10 right now, and then the next book I write is going to be something different.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to that. And what's
it'll be crime though. It'll obviously be crime mystery. What when you're researching some of this stuff, some of the particularly the private investigation and the police procedural type of a thing, do you have a Rolodex of people that you reach out to, or do you have it down by this point after coming up on 10 novels that you you've got it, or do you pick up the phone and talk to different police officers? Hey, what did we use back in 95 if he's thinking about that? What kind of firearm do you guys carry, or what kind of police car was it back then, or hey, what kind of police car is it now? What are you guys driving? Like what do you reach out to? Do you have a whole list of people you reach out to for that stuff, for police and FBI, judges, that sort of a thing? I've had people that have helped me over the years. There was a homicide detective, Tom Bassinger, God rest his soul. He died. Helped me with the first book. He worked in Chula Vista. He passed away. It's been a long time now. But I have a former sheriff deputy friend, San Bernardino County, among other places, David Putnam, who's also a writer, writes the Bruno Johnson series. And he gives me a lot of help with cop stuff. Guns, at times he'll help me with guns. I've made a mistake on a gun before. On a gun I owned, I made a mistake. Which is, I put the serial number in a wrong place. A guy emailed me after the book is out. I go, no, I'm thinking to myself, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I go and I hadn't shot the gun in forever. I look at it, I go, oh my God.
It's so easy to do.
Well, I don't think you make mistakes there, but so Dave has helped me with a lot of cop stuff. Now, cop cars is interesting because Dave's not going to be able to help me with a cop car in, say, Temecula. So I try to talk to people on the force there, and it's usually a public relations person, and sometimes it can be difficult to find stuff like that. Interestingly, for the Navy SEAL one and Dark Fissures, I've only had generally, because when you're asking people for help, they're just giving you help, and all you can give them is acknowledgments. You can't give them a piece of the book or anything. So I always say, hey, would you like me to put I'd like to put your name in the acknowledgments. Is that okay for you? And I've only had two people say no, and one was a Navy SEAL. I'm not going to give his name, but he has a product that I said, I won't say how I came about seeing him, learning about him, but it took me a while to get a hold of him. He gave me some really good stuff. But I said, first of all, he was because I told him I was a writer. You should always say that you're a novelist, because you're not. I'm not like a reporter or something.
Right, a hit piece.
So yeah, exactly. He felt that, I could tell. And so finally the wall came down a little bit. And so after the end, I go, man, this has been great. Thanks so much. And I learned team guy from him. But so I said, and I knew he had a product, that he had a company. And I said, hey, the 14 people that read my books, maybe one of them would be interested in this. can I put your name and, and I'll even put your company in there. And he goes, oh, no, don't do that. Don't do that. And so, and the other one was in the banking industry. And all that I was asking about were safe deposit boxes.
Hey.
That was all I was asking about. And she gave me great information. She told me everything I need to know. Could not have been nicer. And I said, well, I'd like to put your name in the book. And she goes, oh, no, don't do that. I'm thinking, wow.
Interesting.
That's just great. Everybody else was like, yeah, go ahead. I'm thinking, wow, banking. I mean, it was so innocuous stuff, but you never know.
I'm doing research on safe deposit boxes right now, actually.
Oh, there you go. Well, I have a name for you if I could, but I can't tell you who it is. I could email it to you. But you probably find the same thing is that I'm always amazed at how people are so willing to give you information, and they know they're not going to get anything out of it. I think a lot of people like the idea of people writing about what they do, and even if it's just some small thing. But I am always amazed and thankful for the information people just willingly give me. Yeah, that makes a difference. Oh yeah, I know I made a mistake in this book too that somebody has brought to my attention, but
there's always going to be mistakes. What is it? Kyle Mills talks about asphalt and concrete. How many people reach out, tell them the difference. But now, like if you found that in, let's say, 1990, 1982, what are you going to do? The asphalt and concrete. Right. I mean, are you going to find the publisher, find the address, write a letter, fold that up, put it in the envelope, put the address on, get this postage, mail it, and then hope that someone opens it? And then who are you yelling at about asphalt and concrete back then? But no one's taking that time. No one's taking that time to do that. Now they're wasting precious seconds they're never going to get back, precious minutes, getting very upset about this, and then posting publicly that you got this wrong. So it's really interesting how today, because there's an outlet for some of these things, that you now take time out of your life that you're never going to get back to point. And sometimes they're in good, sometimes they are they come from a good place. Like you did get something wrong and someone wants to correct you and actually help. But other times they're just mad and they just want to put it out there. Yes. But what were you supposed to do back in 1985? You're not going to do anything, most likely, unless you're a complete crazy person and you're going to actually write this letter and take 30 minutes or an hour out of your life to do that about asphalt and concrete. Point being, people can point these things out today. Yes. And they will point them out today. So you've got to be extra careful about some of those things, which is why the research often takes a lot longer. And then you have to double check. Like find out if you read something, okay, I got to follow up with someone who's actually done these things, or confirm it with someone who's a subject matter expert in that area, just to make sure to minimize the amount of people that are going to let you know that you messed something up.
Got to find that asphalt expert. Exactly. I actually almost made a mistake on asphalt or concrete.
It's easy to do.
I think it was the first book, but I did my research.
There you go. It's one of those ones that you just kind of throw in there, and if you're not thinking about it, that's a pretty easy one to mess up. But there's tons of examples like that. Yeah. But that's part of the fun too. And today you got to know that being out there, you're making it's art, it's public. It's like you're unveiling the statue, you're unveiling the thing that you've painted for a month, 6 months, a year. And then everybody gets to throw arrows. Everybody or shoot arrows, throw spears at it. There's nothing you can do. It's just how it is today. You can choose maybe not to look at those reviews. Do you read your reviews, or do you read some of them?
Well, Jack, I think only small-minded people would read the reviews. I read all my reviews. I read everything I can find. I just got a bad review from a major reviewer on Doom Legacy, honestly, which is a little disconcerting. But then I've got some good ones. But and then one of the comments he made at the end is like, no, he doesn't get it, because talked about Rick's mistakes, or not specifically that, but that's part of the Rick's deal. Is he's not perfect. He's not a Superman. He makes mistakes. That's part of this whole character. And so whenever I see that, I'm kind of, that's okay. That's good. Because the people that read me for Rick get it. And there's people that do like that kind of character. There's also people that like perfect people, perfect protagonists, but there's a lot that don't. But I do read reviews. And, I've actually, the worst place, I've seen you read your bad reviews, the few that you get. Yeah. But I even read the Goodreads one. The Goodreads is where you get hit badly. But
it's brutal. Goodreads is brutal. I don't look there anymore.
Yeah.
It's too brutal.
I do. And then I tell some friends, hey, if you've not reviewed this yet, you may want to put a honest, good review up because I need the numbers to go up a little bit. But I've read some and go, you know what? He or she has a point there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something, and you got to write the book, but it's something like, I kind of understand that. And I've been cognizant of some critique from reviewers in just mom and pop reviewers as I've gone ahead. I try to be open-minded about it. Sometimes I think, hey, shit, but no, I go, you know what? I can see that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I don't take into account the reviews. I mean, I read them because I like to do those negative reviews every now and again. It's kind of fun. I don't look at Goodreads. I did at the beginning. It's just, people are just too brutal over there. It's typically just Amazon. You always go through and pick out some bad ones. Just go to hit the 1-star thing and then read some of those and have a little fun with them. But much like for the Terminalist Amazon series, those bad reviews, I think, helped make that #1 show on Amazon Prime Video.
Oh yeah.
So I think that bad reviews actually do help, or they certainly can, because what someone hates, guess what? Another person will love and be like, oh, that's the kind of character I'm looking for.
Right.
And they'll go to this because that other person wrote something horrible about what they didn't like. But guess what? Everybody has different likes and dislikes. That's why chasing those reviews, like I've never done that. Meaning I don't write for reviews. I just write the story, and it's the story. I'm trying to make it as good as I can possibly get it. My goal is always to improve it every time, just like with anything in life, get better at the craft, write a better story every single time, because people are trusting me with that time that they're never going to get back. But you can jump around because everyone has different tastes, and this is subjective, much like the statue, much like the painting, it's subjective. So if you run around trying to chase those things, then guess what? You're still not pleasing anybody. And what is it doing? Is it helping the story? I don't know. I guess it depends on the author. But for me, I'm just all in on the story and making it the best I can possibly be. And the only reason I look at those bad reviews now is so I can read them and have a little fun with them on the podcast.
I don't chase them either, but I do like to know what people think. But like I said, there have been a couple times where I go, you know what? I can see that error here. I can see the point there.
Yeah.
And that's just another another alpha reader giving me feedback. Right. But a lot of the time, and in my warped mind, when I see a bad review and then I'll read what they didn't like, and it's more about the character flaws, I'm thinking, yeah, this is good. This I did what I wanted to with this book, because I know that not everybody is going to like it. I'm writing a character, and so are you, who not everybody's going to. Some people are going to have some very visceral feelings about, because my guy, as your guy does, my guy walks the line. He has murdered people, and he's got his own set of justice, but don't all megalomaniacs. So. The people have to understand the character, and I try to be on the edge almost in every book. And sometimes I think, I don't know if he's even. I actually have asked my editor. I go, is he too unlikable here? And and they may say he is or he isn't, but I'll figure it out. But so I'm always trying to walk that edge.
Yeah.
And more in the later books than probably in the earlier ones. So it's a delicate balance, but you can't please everybody. And you're not going to, who would watch if it's a TV show and everything is going right and he's a perfect guy? I'm not watching that.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So I do think about the likability part of it, because I think about, hey, would I want to spend, let's say if I'm listening to this, Ray Porter's reading it for 13 hours. And let's say I'm reading it in a chair, and I'm going to spend between 10 and 15 hours, or 10 and 18, depending on how fast I read. And I thought about this at the beginning when I first started down this path. And I thought, is someone going to want to spend 18 hours, 15 hours, 10 hours with someone that's isn't likable? And so I thought that was important for a main character, for a protagonist anyway. I wanted him to be someone that you'd want to sit down and have a beer with. That was my bar. Like, do I want to sit down and have a beer with this guy? Do I want to sit down and have a coffee with this person? And if my answer was yes, which it was, then that's where I'm going with it, because you are spending so much time with this person, time that you're never gonna get back. So that's kind of that. So as far as likability, I did think about that right out of the gate.
But would you want to sit down with him after you crossed him?
You don't want to. Yeah, exactly. No, if you're the one that crosses him, probably not. It's probably a trap. It's probably an ambush right there. But speaking of TV, these things would make incredible series, incredible films. Has there been any talks with Hollywood about turning these things in? Because it's all there. And you start here with Yesterday's Echo, and you move up here, not to Last Redemption, but to Doomed Legacy, and it's all there for them. I mean, and so fantastic. So, has there been any talks on that front?
Your words to Hollywood's ears. I actually have a new Hollywood agent who my publicist sent a book to, and I didn't even know she was doing that. I have a private publicist who used to work for my publisher. And young guy, go-getter, works for a big agency and big talent agency. And he was all excited about it, Doomed Legacy, and does he have representation? And she didn't even know. I go, yeah, I do. And I don't really have a say of whether I can go somewhere else, but I talked to my agent, my literary agent. I talked to my Hollywood agent who worked really hard for me for 10 years. Did their best to try to get a foothold somewhere. Never were able to for whatever reasons. I knew that they were behind the work. I knew that they worked hard. Never did. So working with somebody new now who's really got some interesting ideas. It was funny because I always thought, well, Rick's a middle-aged guy, and I'm not a middle-aged guy. I'm older than that. Does anybody care about in his private eye? Does anybody care about that anymore? And he said, well, Connolly just sold Avalon, which is a new series from a short story. I don't even know he'd written this short story. And he said, Beachside Private Eyes are in now. I said, you're kidding.
That's how it works.
My time. Now it's only been like a month, and I haven't heard anything. But no, there hasn't been. There hasn't been. No, it's disappointing. But I think at some point something will probably happen because there are so many options now.
Right.
I mean, you can really have your own specific interest, and somebody's probably doing that. But nothing so far. Thank you to mention that. But I'm hopeful. But I just keep writing the books.
There you go. That's all you can do is keep writing the books. But yeah, they would make a great series. And typically in Hollywood, when something comes out that works, then they scramble for some other things in the same vein. So I'm hopeful as well. And man, thank you so much for doing this, and thank you for all your support right out of the gate. We met at was it San Diego Book Festival? Is that what it's? San
Diego Festival of Books.
Yeah, Festival of Books. That was
great. It was after Terminal came out.
Yep, exactly.
And we were on the big stage. You were in New York. I think you were a New York Times bestseller. I think
not yet, not back then.
Well, I think you got a review by the New York Times or something, because there was huge acclaim for you early. And we were with T. Jefferson Parker, the great T. Jefferson Parker, mystery writer, fantastic guy.
Yep.
And so it was my first time on the big stage. We were in the big room, the big stage, and there was a green room. And you were, first of all, everybody knows you. You're a very nice guy. And so it was new to you, and you're asking me questions, or at least maybe I'm volunteering. I don't remember it specifically, but like marketing stuff, when I'm going, yeah, I had all these opinions. I know nothing, right? So then Jack Carr blows up, and then I actually go on his website to buy his brand on my own. Didn't ask Jack for a hat. And so this guy is the marketing genius. I'm thinking, why was he waste? I mean, he's just being nice. But for one thing, it was cool to have a green room. You don't always get those when you're doing an event. So, but no, I appreciate you having me, Jack. I'm a big fan, and I know I'm probably a little bit of a crossover for a lot of your fans, but that's how you learn new things. And but I really appreciate being on. I watch the podcast, love the podcast. I think you do a great job, and you really do introduce people to a lot of different things. Things that and it's always fascinating too. You always like, I'm driving to the store. I'll put it on. Like, fuck. Now I got to put my earbuds in. I got to go in. I got to be concentrating when I'm doing my self checkout, and listening, and making mistakes. But no, you do. You got a great podcast, and I'm honored to be on it. I really am. Really appreciate it.
Oh man, no, thank you so much for taking the time, and best of luck with this Doomed Legacy. And I'm so excited that I got the one that was misprinted right here, because I love things like that.
We should say we're taping before a month or two before, so people out there, it's going to have the right dust cover when you buy it.
That's right. It'll have the right dust cover when this podcast drops, which is the week that the book comes out, which is in November. So, so this will it'll be available now, and check them all out, and then go back and get the first one and get the whole series. Highly recommend it for people that love to read, love mysteries, love crime, love thrillers, or that are students of the genre, or just students of writing, of the craft in general, because just by reading these books, you learn so much about the craft. So, so highly recommend, dive right in. And man, thank you so much. I hope we get to link up in person soon at one of another event. Because after that one we did, what was the one in Long Beach that we did?
Coming up actually in November. It's Men of Mystery.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. I did that one. Yeah, we did that one in 2019. And that was a crazy one. I had my foot on the gas. I often think back to the fall of 2019 as I think it was necessary, but I was not at home at all. I felt so bad, missing so much of the kids' sports and school events and all that stuff. But I think I went right from there up to another. I was just gone all of 2019.
Yeah. It was the beginning of the blast for you. You were
crazy.
Moving skyward.
It was crazy, but it was so much fun. We got to hang out together, and we got to listen to what Scott Brick talked, I think, about narration. So that's a great event. I hope to make it back there one of these days. The rest of my fall is canceled, so I can write this and work on some scripts. So,
good for you.
Yeah,
fantastic.
So lots going on. But man, thank you so much, and
thank you, man.
Yeah, best wishes, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me. Great seeing you.
All right, take care.
Thanks, buddy.
November 11th is Veterans Day, but at Navy Federal Credit Union, every day is Veterans Day. I've been a member since 1996, right after boot camp and right before I went to BUDS, or SEAL training. Navy Federal Credit Union is for active duty veteran DoD employees and their families. They offer resources like the VA Loans Hub and Best Cities After Service. They offer veteran employment assistance partnerships with nonprofits like The Mission Continues. They're a top VA home loan lender. They offer personal finance counseling. They offer 24/7 member service and are a growing community of over 1.8 million veterans just like you. Learn more at NavyFederal.org/veterans. Insured by NCUA, an equal housing lender. I want to thank my friends at Black Rifle Coffee for sponsoring the Danger Close podcast. I've been a huge fan for the longest time. Drink Black Rifle Coffee every day. And if you keep your eyes peeled, you will notice that perhaps Chris Pratt is wearing a Black Rifle Coffee t-shirt, not unsimilar to this one, in the Amazon series adaptation of The Terminal List. Now you can go to blackriflecoffee.com/dangerclose and use code DangerClose20 at checkout for 20% off your purchase and your first coffee club order. Black Rifle Coffee, America's coffee. Keep crushing. GATORZ Eyewear. I have been wearing GATORZ sunglasses since I first found them in a motorcycle shop in Chula Vista, California, back when I was a new guy at SEAL Team 5 in 1998. Back then, I found these, the Raptors, and I wore them on every single deployment and wore them in my cameo in The Terminal List, where I got in a little gunfight with Chris Pratt playing James Reese, and Chris wore these right here. These are the Magnums. And lately, I've been wearing the new Deltas. So every 25 years or so, I'll switch it up and wear a different style of GATORZ sunglasses. So these are the Deltas. Been wearing these recently, and obviously love this company, love this product. GATORZ is the proud manufacturer of American-made eyewear for those who build and protect our nation. Each pair is hand-assembled in Yuma, Arizona, forged by CNC Machining Aluminum, and designed to offer elite-level ballistic protection for those who push the limits every day. They have a custom fit. They are impact resistant and come in a lot of different types: polarized, non-polarized, high contrast shooting lenses, clear to dark transitional lenses, available to block 100% of harmful UV rays. Anyway, a lot more options than back when I found them in 1998. So check them out on their website. Go to gatorz.com, and right now you can get 25% off. That's GATORZ, GATORZ.com/dangerclose for 25% off. Check out a few of my favorites and be sure and save that 25%. Once again, GATORZ.com/dangerclose. Offer is valid site-wide through the end of the year. Grab a pair for yourself or pick up a pair for a gift. GATORZ sunglasses. Check them out. Welcome to the gear highlight portion of the Danger Close podcast. All right, check this out. Aries watch. And I love Aries watches right here. This is the diver one. They have a couple different versions out there, but I keep going back to this one right here. Super nice. Bam, Matt Graham. You can catch him on the podcast. We did that a few months ago. Super guy. But Aries watches, go check out what they have going on. What else here? Brain Treatment Foundation. So braintreatmentfoundation.com. Check out what they have going on. Thank you guys for the hat right here. It's one of the foundations that we supported through the Amazon Prime Video Terminalist series. And they've helped out a lot of great friends of mine. So check out what they have going on and give them some support. And it doesn't have to be financial. It can be with a follow. It can be with a repost. It can be with all that sorts of things. There's a lot of options these days rather than just sending a check, although I know they would appreciate that as well. So braintreatmentfoundation.com. GATORZ, man, thank you guys. They sent me a really cool package. I've been wearing GATORZ since 1997, 1998. So it's been a while and I still have my originals. And right here, GATORZ, check out this package right here. These are the Spectres that they sent right here, but they have a long history with naval special warfare. Of course, they're in my novels. Chris Pratt wears them in the series and just a good group of people over there making a really cool product. So these are the Spectres right here. Again, GATORZ sunglasses. Check them out. Give them a follow. KryptAll, man, KryptAll Phones right here. Today, as you're trying to communicate securely, it's a lot harder than it used to be. And if I can figure out how to open this thing, there it is. We could open it up and check it out. So it's like a regular Apple type phone. They have a bunch of different versions out there, but KryptAll right now, as far as I know, they're at the top of the pyramid when it comes to secure communications. And there are a few people out there that I could mention who use it, but they like to remain anonymous. So KryptAll Phones, check them out. And yeah, pretty cool. That's why they've been in a couple of my novels thus far and in the show. And right here, I'm wearing the shirt, Protekt right here. Love the shirt right there in the back. Remain rooted. Love it. But right here, Energy, they make clean supplements. And right here, this is one I've been using quite a bit of. Hydration, raspberry. It is delicious. So as I'm writing away and need something to hydrate, these guys have me covered. So thank you guys. Nick Norris, dear friend of mine from the SEAL teams, is involved with these guys, and they're doing great things. So give them a follow, check them out, and use them to hydrate or energy. There's a bunch of other stuff they have out there as well. All right. That is it for today. Take care out there. Thank you for tuning in to the Danger Close podcast, an IRONCLAD original presented by Navy Federal Credit Union. To find out more about Matt Coyle, go to his website, Matt Coyle, and that is Coyle, mattcoylebooks.com. You can link to him on the social channels there, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. But once again, mattcoylebooks.com. My next novel the title is out now, and it is called Only the Dead. Check out that video. It's on Instagram, it's on Facebook, it's on Twitter, and it is on the Jack Carr YouTube channel. It is available for pre-order now. Once again, it is called Only the Dead. You can follow me at Jack Carr USA on the social channels, officialjackcarr.com. That is the website. You can sign up for the newsletter there. You can click shop for the merch there. And until the next time, take care out there. Stay safe. Be strong. Keep fighting.